Okay, let's unpack this. So today we're opening up what looks like a really fascinating set of source materials. We've got the transcripts from the October 9th, 2025 Infinite Way group meeting.
Uh-huh.
Now, for anyone who may be not familiar, this group, they're known for taking a very disciplined, almost engineering-like approach to spiritual practice.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
They aren't just, talking philosophy. They're really focused on the mechanics of consciousness.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so our mission, really, for this deep dive is to pull out those practical how-to methods. We want to get past the theory and look at the actual nuts and bolts. How do they suggest maintaining like a continuous spiritual presence day to day?
Right. It's about the disciplined doing of it.
Yes. Implementation.
And it seems to kick off with setting a clear intention. They call it becoming transparencies for God, which sounds lovely, but it's not just a one-and-done thing, is it?
No, not at all. The transcripts really hammer this point home. This dedication, this idea of loving God and neighbor, it needs to be consciously repeated. They specifically say at least 2 to 3 times a day.
2 to 3 times. Wow.
Yeah, it's like a foundational commitment you have to keep renewing. They're basically saying, look, you have to actively dedicate your consciousness to this state multiple times a day. Why? Because the world, our senses, everything is constantly pulling you back, back into just identifying with the physical stuff.
So it's an active pushback against that constant pull.
Precisely. They make it really clear.
Yeah.
If you want to be a channel of transparency for, let's say, divine action, you've got to keep renewing that dedication.
Yeah.
Constantly.
They even gave a specific affirmation, which I thought was beautiful. It sets the stage, the mindset. It starts, in the name of the Father, peace, be still.
That's key.
And then it moves into that core intention. May God's love touch the consciousness and awaken their souls.
And that focus on peace, on stillness, that's like the prerequisite, isn't it? For all the really intense work that follows, it lays the groundwork for why this structured practice is actually necessary.
Right.
They're very direct about it. They say, illumination dissolves all material ties, meaning, true freedom is possible, but, and this is the crucial part, the only real restraint, the only thing holding us back is the discipline of soul.
You have to earn it through structure, through that discipline.
You do. It doesn't just happen.
Okay, so if discipline is the key, we need to know what we're being disciplined against. And the transcripts dive right into that, don't they? The first big hurdle seems to be this thing we all do constantly, projection, creating these man-made realities.
Exactly. Projection. They spent a lot of time on that, referencing Chapter 10, reality and illusion. And they start with this basic idea that essentially we live in 2 worlds.
2 worlds. Okay.
Yeah. There's the world built by our 5 physical senses, our memories, our interpretations, the sensory world. And then there's the world of pure consciousness, unconditioned.
And this is where it gets really interesting, particularly how they use sort of biblical metaphors to explain it.
Right. They contrast what they call the pure spiritual birth from Genesis 1.
Which they see as God manifesting himself, like the Immaculate Conception idea.
Essentially, yes. Yeah. God manifesting pure potential. They contrast that with the figure who comes later in Genesis 2, the man of earth.
Who they describe as, what is it, a mythical creation of the human mind?
Exactly. That's the split, the immaculate versus the mythical. But think of it less religiously and more psychologically. Genesis 1 is like your original state, pure potential, maybe quantum reality, if you like. Genesis 2, that's the operating system we install.
The filter.
The filter. Yeah, the filter of human experience, human concepts, human limitations. That's the mythical self, the ego, generated by our own thinking.
And that mistake, that filtering, it immediately messes up how we see the divine itself. The transcripts have this really strong warning about creating a man-made God.
Oh, definitely. They argue that if you just stop for a second, right now, and ask yourself, okay, what is God? And if your answer is an image.
Like an old man with a beard, or a specific religious feather.
Or even something abstract, like saying God is mind, or principle, or law. If that's your answer, they say flat out, it is not that.
Because? Why is that so definitive?
Because any answer that comes from your mind is just a projection. It's based on your background, your conditioning, your biases, your crystallized beliefs. You've basically taken this infinite, undefinable reality and tried to stuff it into a neat little conceptual box.
And the warning attached to that is pretty stark.
It's terrifying, really.
Yeah.
They say the harder we try to this God that we have in our mind, the more barren we will become.
Wow. Barren.
Yeah, because you're not actually connecting with reality. You're just talking to your own mental construct, your own shadow, in a way.
That's a That's a tough thing to hear, I think, especially for people who rely on very specific ideas about God, whether theological or even metaphysical. If defining it means losing it, how are we supposed to engage at all?
But that is the point. That's the whole crux of their teaching.
Yeah.
You engage by realizing that the tool you're using, your human conceptual mind, is the very thing getting in the way. It can't grasp the infinite.
Okay. Okay. And if we project a mythical God, it follows that we definitely project a mythical self.
Absolutely. If I ask myself, who am I? What am I like?
Mm.
Any answer I come up with is just.
Yeah.
It's a collage. Opinions, prejudices, concepts I've collected.
Based on whether my past actions pleased or displeased other people or myself even.
Totally subjective. It's the self as like a PR campaign. And the transcripts use that really powerful example, the crowd with the master. One day they adore him, shower him with praise.
And the next day they're screaming, crucify him.
Exactly. Why? Because they never knew him. They only knew the image, the projection they'd plastered onto him. And as soon as he stepped outside their box, their limited concept.
The adoration just flipped into rage, rejection.
Because their image was threatened.
Mm-hmm.
It shows just how unstable any relationship is with God, with others, with ourselves, if it's built on these mental projections.
Which leads us to the big, maybe scary question. If our concepts are the problem, how on earth do we get rid of them? What's the how-to for that?
Right. And this is where they introduce this radical process, the how-to for achieving what they call immaculate knowing. It starts with the great unlearning.
The great unlearning. Okay. And the instruction here feels absolutely extreme. It says, we have to discard everything that we now believe.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like complete mental shutdown. If I discard my concept of good, for instance, how do I even function ethically? How do I make decisions? What do they say about that practical side?
That's a really important question. And they do address it. It's not about becoming, unethical or unable to function. It's about discarding the crystallized concept you hold in your mind.
Ah, okay. The rigidity of it.
Yes. If your idea of good or evil comes purely from your past experiences, basically, from what pleased or displeased you personally, then you're operating from judgment. And that judgment is the projection.
So the goal isn't to become amoral, but to stop the judging process itself. Even judging something as good.
Precisely. To know reality, whether it's God or another person, you first have to acknowledge that all we know is some concept that has become crystallized in our mind. To truly know someone, truly see them, you'd have to somehow empty our mind of all opinions, concepts, theories, and beliefs about them.
Because those beliefs, those opinions, are only based on our own limited experience, whether it pleased or displeased us.
Right. It's all based on our personal filters, our judgments.
It sounds like aiming for spiritual amnesia almost. But how do you actively do that? How do you force your mind to let go of things that feel so fundamental?
Well, you can't really force it in that aggressive sense, but you can surrender it. And they offer a practical step for that, a way to start fresh, achieve this sort of rebirth. It's an act of prayer, but one of surrender.
Okay. What's the affirmation for that?
It goes, Father, wipe all this away. I am willing to start all over. Show me this man or this situation or God as he is. Reveal him to me.
That takes a lot of vulnerability, a lot of trust. You're basically saying, I'm willing to be completely wrong about everything I thought I knew.
It's huge.
Yeah.
But the promise, according to the transcripts, is that if you turn within with that genuine willingness, that surrender, the truth is revealed. And then the eye of him would be born in us immaculately.
That's the immaculate knowing, unfiltered, unconditioned understanding.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's the big reset. But then there's the moment-to-moment practice, right? The continuous awareness. They call it the noticing. Because if this presence needs to be continuous, we need a way to catch ourselves slipping back into projection.
Absolutely. You can't fix a leak if you don't even know it's there, right?
Yeah.
One participant put it perfectly. You can't work with it if you don't even notice it happening.
Makes sense.
So the immediate, everyday practice starts right there, just observing, recognizing when a projection arises, or even just the slightest little disturbance in your consciousness.
What does that slightest disturbance actually feel like, though, in everyday life? Is it just big things like anger or fear?
It can be much smaller than that. It could be a tiny flash of irritation when someone interrupts you.
Yeah.
Or that momentary feeling of superiority when you think you know better. Or a flicker of resentment towards someone.
Ah, so those little quick reactions.
Yeah, that flash, that judgment, that feeling of separation, that's the mythical self popping back up. In that tiny moment, you're judging, and your deeper, higher self isn't fully present.
And they talked about making this noticing a habit, like building a muscle. Was there a specific technique suggested for kind of kickstarting that state quickly?
Yes, there was. One practical technique involved a quick breath exercise. Very simple. The instruction was basically deliberately focus only on your breath for maybe 30 to 40 seconds. Just the inhale, the exhale.
Okay, just focusing on the breath.
And then, this is the important shift. You switch your attention from the breath itself to the silence in your mind. That space between thoughts.
30, 40 seconds. That's short enough anyone can do it almost anywhere. Why the switch, though? From breath to silence, what does that achieve?
Well, the breath anchors you. It pulls your focus into the present moment, away from all the mental noise, right?
Yeah.
But the silence is where they suggest reality resides, unconditioned by your thoughts. So by making that shift, you're training your attention, that noticing muscle, to find that unconditioned space.
And hopefully stay there longer over time.
That's the idea. It's the practical way to work towards continuous presence.
This brings up something really crucial they pointed out. The power of noticing itself. Like, who or what is actually doing the noticing when I catch myself judging?
That's key. It's not your ego doing the noticing. Your ego is the judgment. The transcripts are really clear on this. When you become aware of the judgment, it's your higher self, that deeper awareness, that's doing the noticing. So simply by recognizing the ego's activity, you are automatically strengthening the presence of that higher self within you. You're proving, moment by moment, that there's a part of you that's separate from all that mental reactivity.
That completely reframes it. It's not about battling the ego. It's about shifting allegiance to the observer.
Exactly. And this leads straight into that fundamental choice they lay out. Your higher self can only accept, and your ego can only judge. It's one or the other.
Let's dig into that judgment part a bit more. They made a point that this applies not just to negative stuff, but positive projections too. Why is it important to discard thinking, say, I am a really compassionate person? Isn't that a good thing?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But the issue is the ego doesn't really care what label it wears, good or bad. It just wants an identity. It wants recognition, definition. So if you identify strongly as highly compassionate, well, that's still a concept, a projection. And you'll become invested in defending it. If someone challenges your compassion, or if you act in a way that doesn't fit that image, boom, your piece is gone.
Because the identity is threatened.
Right. True presence, from their perspective, means letting reality, letting maybe divine compassion, express itself through you without you needing to grab it and label it and claim it as mine. You just remain the transparency.
Wow, that level of non-identification, stripping away even the good labels, that requires some deep inner work, like what people sometimes call shadow work.
Absolutely. The ultimate practice, as they describe it, involves letting those difficult feelings, the jealousy, the insecurity, the anger, all that stuff we push away, letting them come up into awareness.
Okay.
But here's the twist. Instead of doing what we normally do, repress them, or judge them as bad, or analyze them to death, you practice not judging them or labeling them.
Just letting them be there.
Just observing them, without adding that layer of conceptual judgment. By simply witnessing them without resistance, you allow the energy that's trapped in that feeling, that old conditioning, to actually release itself. You stay the observer, the transparency, not the judge.
So, bringing this all together, what does this really mean for us, living our regular busy lives surrounded by concepts?
I think it means that real spiritual practice, at least according to this particular group in these transcripts, is fundamentally an act of subtraction. Continuous, disciplined subtraction, not addition.
We spend so much time trying to add things, don't we? Add good thoughts, add positive affirmations, add more spiritual knowledge.
Exactly. But the real engine of transformation here seems to be the constant removal of those crystallized concepts, those projections, even the good ones that bolster our ego and sense of self. It's about committing to unknowing yourself, unknowing your concept of God, so you can actually experience what's real.
It really comes down to that daily diligence, doesn't it? That commitment to just noticing. Noticing that subtle shift back into the mythical creation, the concepts, and instead consciously choosing the silence. Choosing the immaculate, the unconditioned.
And that profound challenge, that need to really dismantle our most basic assumptions, it brings us right back to that powerful question the group posed. It's something maybe you, the listener, can carry into your own moments of quiet this week. Are you beginning to see how much we have all accepted about God?